Okay, we're recording.
We're good.
Okay, thank you, Tucker. I'd like to call the special meeting of the Board of Finance to order. Chris Labrie, would you please just read the roll call?
Yes, Michael Chen, Colin Dobbin, Bob Hamill,
Here.
Todd Lavieri,
Here.
Chris Labrie is here, Nick Matrakis,
Oops.
Jan Schaefer, Tom Schulte, Maria Weingarten,
Here.
James Yao, Victor Alvarez.
Here.
Okay, we have five
Okay.
members.
And it sounds like we're expecting possibly one more, Chris.
Yeah.
So just to
Yeah.
keep that in mind from Tom Schulte. Okay. All right, we have one agenda item. It's been noticed, properly noticed for this call, for this meeting. And it's a request for a special appropriation for the Housing Authority loan. Chris, could I ask you to read the request?
Yeah,
And
I'll
then-
read it into the record.
Pardon me?
A request for special appropriation for
Tom
housing.
Schulte is online.
Okay, thank you. So Tom's in, Chris.
Okay, great. Request for special appropriation for housing authority loan. Approval of the following resolution requesting a special appropriation to loan up to $4 million to the Housing Authority of New Canaan to be used to cover expenses related to the purchase of 106 Lakeview Avenue. Want to read the whole thing?
No. I think that's fine. The point though, I want to make sure we had a grounding as to what the purpose of the meeting was, and then I think everyone understands it's a loan up to $4 million. I asked Anne if she could join us, and could you walk through how this works, Anne, in terms of if there is money that is needed for this transaction, and then how do we bond or pay ourselves back at some point? We just walk us through the mechanics of that, please?
The original 4 million, we would send out, put it into a major fund as an AR for us, based on the terms. And then when we're ready, we would do an authorization to put it into bonding so we can reimburse ourselves at whatever particular time. So if we did it the following March, when we go out to bond, it wouldn't hit our budget until fiscal year 26. If we did it the next year after that, it would hit obviously 27. It will not affect the fund balance of the general fund. So it will not become restricted on the general fund because I'm putting it into a different major fund, handling it the same way as the library, so that it has no effect on that balance for the general fund.
And if the Housing Authority of New Canaan, it's a loan up to $4 million. Everything's the same, and if they only need $2 million, right? It doesn't really matter. It's only up to 4, but if they only need 2, do you move 2 back? I mean, if you put 4 over, and do you keep it there, or would you only then keep back in that fund only the amount that was required?
I would only record whatever we do for the closing.
There
So
you
if they
go.
knew the 2 million, that's all I'm going to record, whatever up to what I send out as a wire.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that and was clear on how that would all work. Questions?
Yeah, is the loan set up as a revolving credit that it can borrow or multi-draw? Let's put it that way. Is it multi-draw?
Good question.
No.
That was not the intention. It's a great question.
Figure out what they need, and they only get to ask once.
Once.
And 4.
In order to close the deal.
Exactly.
Yes.
Okay,
Question.
all right. And do we need to concern ourselves about the pricing of the loan from a town revenue perspective?
Do you mean in terms of what rate we're using or?
Yeah, what rate we're using and what rate the town will earn for the advances?
So the rate will be 2 days in advance. So it'll be a tax exempt rate plus 1% or 1 basis points on top of it.
100 basis points. you're
100.
saying.
Sorry, 100 basis points. My apologies.
And
Yeah, 1 basis point, Scott, would be a good deal, right?
No.
Let's try
One-
Scott.
Is Scott
100.
still on the call? Scott, are you on the call?
All right, thank you, Ann.
That's great, Ann. Thank you.
And would you happen to know, were we to choose to reimburse ourselves through a bond funding, would we aim to match the term of the bond to the term of the loan?
From right now, they're looking to do it as a balloon payment. So we would be charging the interest every month.
Yeah.
And at the point of when they would pay the full thing off. So what I'm doing is currently right now, we're looking into, because we have a year or so before we actually bond. I'm looking into a debt service fund setup so that we can keep that matching in place.
Right, and they said it would be a 30-year amortization, but a 10-year term with a balloon at the end.
Wouldn't be a 30-year amortization on a bond. No, we'd either do 5 or 10 years, probably 5.
Well, so the duration of the loan was going to be 10, or is it 5?
It's 10.
10.
And it's 10.
It's 10, but we have to look at tax perspective on when we go to the bond, what the tax implication of the bond itself, whether I have to do a 5 or a 10.
Okay, so, and then the instrument, right, the asset that we're signing with the housing authority, that will have no amortization, interest only for the balloon?
Yes.
Right now, yes, sorry. Yep.
Okay,
So in the loan document, the term of the credit is 10 years.
Yes. Yes, Chris.
Chris, FYI, Nick did join. Please include Nick.
Hello, sorry I was late.
I
Okay.
see Nick. Thank you.
Did you guys cover already how much the interest payments will be?
It's interest only, Nick, for 10 years and a balloon payment at the end.
And how much is the interest payment?
It's 10-year tax exempt money plus 100 basis points.
That turns into how
So
many?
it's 2.7 plus 100, 3.7.
on a principal amount, Nick, that we don't know, but it's, an amount up to 4,
That's the
Okay,
which is just designed to plug any shortfall they might have.
It may be 0.
Correct,
Right, right.
Scott, any chance it could be more than 4?
No.
Can't be.
well,
I
Not
am
from
muted.
this- not from this group.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Sorry,
then,
Scott.
Deanna, is there any
Are-
chance?
are
it
you
could be more
asking-
than
No,
4?
he gets 4. That's it.
Right, well, the
Up
loan,
to 4. That's the deal.
right, the loan can't be more than 4. If you're asking
Correct.
about the shortfalls more than 4,
That's a different question.
that is
Mhm.
very,
Yes.
Very different question.
Yeah,
So if there was a shortfall in excess of 4, we'd have to reconvene and do some other kind of funding.
Correct.
Well, so yes,
Yes.
we have to reconvene
Yes.
and together everyone would have to do something else. But I
Yes.
think maybe it's appropriate, Scott, to maybe give us a quick update as to where we are.
sure. So right now, it still remains that it's likely that we will not need any funds from the town. We're still working a little bit with New Canaan Neighbors in order to try to boost our equity. A loan from the town does not help. It's possible we don't, again, the intention here is not to draw on this line of credit. But as I've been involved in this deal now long enough, I thought it was prudent that we go ahead and do as much work as we could ahead of time so that I'm not coming up 3 days before saying we need $1 million tomorrow or this fails. So
Exactly.
Belts and suspenders, Scott. Belts and suspenders.
that's it.
Other
I will say
questions
it-
for Ann? Or, yeah, go ahead, Scott.
I'm sorry, is one other thing that just probably worth mentioning for just 2 seconds. The one issue that we're hitting a little bit of a hiccup on right now, and I'm only saying little bit because we've had a lot of big hiccups. So, but they are doing a little bit of a pushing of us under our equity value. And in order to try to go ahead and boost our equity, we are working with New Canaan Neighbors. And New Canaan Neighbors was the group that actually founded Canaan Parish. And we had partnered with Canaan Parish in order to create the new Canaan Parish. And from that, first off, Canaan Parish had gone ahead and derived some equity beforehand from the project. And then through the project and our developer fees, they've actually accumulated more equity. And we've been asking and trying to work with New Canaan Neighbors to go ahead and give us a grant that would be usable toward this project and that would be returnable if not used within a, say, 3-year type period. And so we're in negotiations trying to do that. Should that fail, then again, we may have to try to scramble and do some other things, or we may have to try to find another way to try to boost our equity somewhat by several $1 million. Hopefully that won't fail.
So when you say they, Scott, are you talking about the financing sources want to see more equity in the deal?
Correct. Fannie and the underwriters.
Fannie
Yes.
and RBC? Yeah.
RBC.
Yes.
So could we change the nature of the funding to be like a preferred equity or something like that?
We've had a lot of obstacles in trying to figure out any way to create equity without creating equity. So, I mean, I would not like to do this under the town side because I don't even know whether or not it's possible. But I mean, in case of emergency and breaking glass, if we can't figure stuff out in a couple of weeks, there does come this question about, could we go ahead and get an allocation from the town for whatever equity we need, which would be in that neighborhood of somewhere between $3 to $5 million. And again, I don't want to have to do that. And I know that from a town perspective, that would be problematic, but that's sort of like the last probably major hurdle that we may face.
Well, just to be clear, you can't do that tonight. We have to do an up and down on the.
But we could look at this credit at some later point.
We could do that
and say, gee, if it's preferred equity, then we still earn something on it, and it counts on your side as equity.
Yeah.
And for example, the terms of the grant will be that they turn the money over to us. We put it into an interest-bearing account that today is something like 5%. And then we can only use the money to fund capital and operation needs that are not funded through normal cash flows, of which we have a very good reserve set up and we have other reserves set up. And if after 3 years we were not to use the funds, which is our intention, we would return the whole thing with interest to New Canaan Neighbors.
Okay.
Well, if we were in the private world, a developer would literally put $3 million into the deal, and the day after the deal, they take the $3 million out. But our attorneys happen to be a little bit more ethical under that sort of thing, and frowns upon the taking it out the day after.
Yeah. Okay.
What is the concern, Scott?
I believe it's a concern under Fannie that although we have done successful projects as the Housing Authority and New Canaan has shown great promise, ultimately we haven't done 10,000 units or 100,000 units. And so we're still relatively new to this, and they have some concerns over the fact that we're a new entity and what happens if things go wrong. It ignores a little bit to the fact that, and again, I pray to God I never have to eat these words, but we are in New Canaan. There's an extremely limited supply of housing, and we're in a top school district. So the odds of things going horribly wrong, I believe, to be very minuscule. And our pro forma shows that to be the case. So that's where I think is this nervousness about, how you consider this deal to be one like what you'd be doing in Tampa or Scottsdale or in some other, or Nashville versus New Canaan, Connecticut. And again, the fact that we're relatively new to this business and again, don't have 10,000 units behind us or something.
And is Fannie, do they have these rules that apply if your loan to value in the project is over a certain threshold? The
essential housing bonds are actually, again, they're relatively obscure and do not get used much. And we're finding that out, that while somebody identified right away they were out there, it turns out they aren't actually used much. And so everyone is learning a little bit on the fly on this, including Fannie.
It sounds to me, Tom, that the fact that we're a smaller town, we haven't done this before, their risk model is probably flagging us saying, hey, you need to have more equity in the deal just to protect the lender.
Right.
And what's the pushback from New Canaan neighbors?
Well, I think it's making sure that they act in a fiduciarily sound way to protect their charitable funds. And that I think is the biggest challenge for them.
Scott, would it be helpful at all to get any vouchers or try to get some vouchers, even some special vouchers, like maybe for veterans or for disabled or any of these other things that the state is really focused on trying to increase housing for elderly maybe? So maybe if we could get some vouchers, that would sort of make it better as well, wouldn't it? Wouldn't that help with the numbers?
Oh, I think that'd be great. And again, you know more about the vouchers than I do, but I think the vouchers end up being a much fairer, more responsible way to put affordable housing throughout a community. I don't know whether or not we can get any commitments to anything before that time, before when we have to close.
Yeah, okay.
Any other questions for Scott or Deanna or Ann? I don't see any. If not, I'm ready to take a vote unless there's other questions. Okay, so what I'd like to do is call a vote. I'd like to have a motion to approve the request for the special appropriation as Chris read this. I need a motion and a second.
I'll do a motion.
Maria,
Second.
who did the second?
Bob,
Oh, Bob.
Do we need to seat Nick, being that he's an alternate?
You had a oh, yeah.
But you should seat him for someone who's not there.
We certainly can. So we have a motion and a second, so I can do that. So, well, I really can't actually, Tucker. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we have a
Okay.
quorum. He can just
Okay.
go with the quorum.
Yeah.
And you just don't.
Yeah,
vote.
he's not part of the vote. Okay.
I can't start with another motion, another second to change this.
I know, I was interrupting. It wasn't appropriate. Okay.
So, so I have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the special appropriation for the Housing Authority loan? Say aye. I need your
Aye.
hands up on TV, on the, if you're on Zoom.
Labrise, Hamel, Schulte, Navieri.
Scott, put that hand down, Scott.
And then we've got Victor and Maria.
Victor and
Okay.
Maria are, sorry. Any opposed? Okay. The motion's passed. Thank you all. Any
Thank
other
you,
items?
Scott.
Tucker?
Well, thank you all, everybody. I appreciate this and hope we can pull this all together.
Good luck.
Yes.
Scott,
All
you're
right.
joining us on Wednesday night for town council?
I will be there.
Scott, I
I'll
need
see you
to
guys
just
tomorrow
keep-
morning.
I don't know, Deanna, what the process is between now and the end, but you're probably having daily conversation. I just want to make sure you're keeping us up to speed in terms of what are those actions or steps or anything that's necessary, especially Ann, of course. So,
And is
Yeah.
there any updates since we met last, what was it? Wednesday? Tuesday?
Tuesday.
I mean, are we
Scott's
closer,
shaking his head now.
closer to the goal line? Okay.
Yeah.
We've actually had an uneventful week, which is nice. First one in a while.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. With that, I
All right,
need
good
a
luck.
motion to adjourn. Well, we're not done yet. Motion to adjourn. Keep it.
so moved.
Chris?
So move second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Thank you all.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everybody. Thank